Have you ever considered becoming a freelancer, but you're not sure where to start? Well, Dutch designers Dennis and Peter did exactly that by coming together to form their own freelance agency, Kersvers. Together, they work in-house at different companies while operating under the same freelance agency. And if that sounds interesting to you and you want to know more about how it's done, then keep watching. What you're about to see is a 45-minute replay of a community live stream event between myself, Dennis, and Peter, where we dive into this topic. In this video, we cover topics like how to get started freelancing, how to create your own freelancing agents, how to get clients, and also their unique approach to different income streams as part of their freelance strategy. If you want to join live streams like this in the future, then head on over to femke.design/community and join my super peer community. Over here, we do monthly guest live streams. We also have design crits and office hours and other fun events that we do together as a community. And you can join live streams like this one live and ask your questions in the chat. My channel is also sponsored by Superpeer, and if you want one-on-one mentoring with me, then head on over to my Superpeer profile and book a call. All right, enjoy the replay. I think we're live. Hello, welcome everybody. 20 of you joining into the live stream. It's been a while since I did one of these streams, so I'm super glad to see some of you here. Let us know in the chat where you're joining in from. I want to check that the chat is all good and working and that you can hear us and see us okay. If there are any issues, please let us know in the chat. Yeah, thanks, Dennis, coming in from quarantine.
Gotcha.
Also. Cool. So yeah, we have Dennis and Peter here on the live stream with me today, and we're going to talk all about sort of starting your own freelance agency. And the stream's going to go for about an hour or so. If you have any questions during the stream, you're welcome to leave your questions here in Superpeer. On the right-hand side, you should see the chat. There's also, you can toggle over to questions and leave a question there. And we'll make sure we save some time at the end for a little bit of Q&A. I see there's already a question if this is going to be recorded. Yes, this is going to be recorded. I'm also going to pop a few links in the chat here. If you're interested in checking out Dennis and Peter online, you can follow them on Twitter or Dribble. You can also check out their freelance agency, Kersvers, which I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot in this live stream. And I always like to start the stream by talking a little bit about why this topic, like why freelancing, why running your own agency. I have not had much experience freelancing myself, but I often get a lot of questions from folks asking like how to get started with freelancing, like how do you get started when you don't have much experience or you don't like have people you can reach out to, you know, to get clients from. That's always a big struggle that people have. I also think freelancing is a really great way for people early on in their design career to start building their portfolio, getting some experience. You know, often like when you start applying for jobs, there's like a certain amount of experience that folks are looking for. So freelancing is a really, really great way to get to that. And then we might also talk a little bit about freelancing in the context of Europe. Like Peter and Dennis both live in the Netherlands. So we might hear a little bit about their experience in Europe as well and working from the Netherlands with clients all over the world, which is super cool. Awesome. Okay, before we get into it, we'd love to hear a little bit more about each of you. Dennis, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe how you got into design?
Sure thing. So I'm Dennis. I am 34 years old already. Currently broadcasting. That's a nice word, broadcasting. Yeah. From Gorinchem. Don't try to pronounce it. It's hard if you're not from around here. Been designing since I would say 2009, something like that. I started during my study communication multimedia design, and that's actually a funny story how I got into design. When I graduated from this thing we call the HAVO, which was I guess is that middle school? No,
High school.
What's the term? High school. Yeah, that's high school. I decided I wanted to do well. I actually stumbled upon a study called commercial economics, which at that point was something that everybody from my class was going for. We didn't have actual like guidance in determining what we actually liked or what we wanted to do with our future. So I just went along with 6 other guys and went study economic. economics. But within 3 months, I was failing really hard, and I was afraid to tell my parents because I was having really bad grades.
Oh no.
Then I decided, yeah, that was bad. It was really, really, really bad. And after 3 months, I don't even think I made it into 3 months. I decided I wanted to go and become a skateboarder. I was 16, 17, something like that. And
Wow.
I thought I could do that, but I was terrible at it. I did not have any talent for it. So I like after a couple of months, that was like, yeah, it's not going to be a career, but I still liked it, so I still kept on doing it. Then I told somewhere along the ride, I told my parents that I was failing hard, and I was going to quit I was going to quit that study. And yeah, so my dad told me you should go get a job because I'm not paying for a year doing nothing. So go get a job. So I figured, yeah, sure, I'll go get a job. But instead, I went some doing some more skateboarding, and with somebody I knew from, when I was a kid. And like somewhere in October of the year that I was supposed to work, I was skateboarding with a guy, and that guy, that friend of mine, he told me that he was taking a study called uh, communication and multimedia design in Rotterdam. And yeah, he told me a lot about it. I liked it. It sounded great because I like to draw. I still do. So I figured, let's just drop by, just see how it was. So like 2 days later, I just went up to that school, not being enrolled at all or something. I just
showed
walked
up there.
into I just showed up there in the same class that he was in. I sat down. I told him I had submitted that I was going to participate in that study, even though I was not planning on it at that time. I just figured just see how it was. And yeah, and yeah, I liked it so much that afterwards I called my parents and said, well, I want to do this new study. And then yeah, things start kicking off. And during that study, I actually started doing some design work on the side, and that's how I got into the actual freelancing part. Yeah.
So from economics to skateboarder to designer, like very logical path. Like can totally see the connection between each step.
yeah. So yeah. But I would say the
Amazing.
creativity between like the skateboarding part that I always liked, and I always liked all those kinds of stuff, the culture around it, being creative,
it is very creative,
making things.
Yeah, totally.
Economic, not so much. Wasn't fun at all.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Awesome. And Peter, we'd love to hear more about you. Want to share a little bit about you and your sort of journey into design?
Definitely. I think my design career started early. I think I started designing and building websites back when I was 16. I'm 36 right now. Don't say that to anybody. That was back in the day, like Microsoft front page or whatever we were still using. Photoshop wasn't even around back then. But I pretty early discovered that like I was really into this like computers and graphic design space, and I basically aimed my career towards that trajectory. So I chose all my studies towards this topic. Studied in the Netherlands, and after actually during college, I started freelancing. Just for family, friends, a company, local company, let's say a bakery or whatever, like small businesses.
Yeah.
And I think like at least in a small area that really worked well, because like it's really safe space to explore freelance work. You're still living at home. You're picking up these clients next to college.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's a perfect way to learn. And actually, I also found out during that phase that I really like being an entrepreneur and working for yourself, at least like that freedom that comes with it, and that the freedom of decision making. So right after college, I asked a friend if he would be interested in launching a design agency together, and that is actually Cashfresh.
Okay.
That was Renee. I think you might know him, but the rest of the people obviously don't. So Renee and I launched cash fast straight out of college. Started working with some local clients at first, but we're actually within the Netherlands. We were able to get some bigger clients pretty quickly. We can get into how that all happened later in this call, right? But from that, we grew Cash Fast together, and it was just Renee and I, and later Dennis and two other guys joined as well. And not to like spoil anything that we're going to talk about later.
No,
That's
please
basically
go.
how we end up here. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. So you were freelancing first individually, and then you decided, hey, let's get together and sort of like maybe start this more kind of like
I think
agency.
Renee and I had this plan to start an agency. That was definitely the plan. But we were also younger and less experienced. And I think like a lot of folks when they think about starting on their own in design, they think about starting a design agency. I think that's just the first thing you think about. But actually, although we started doing agency work, I can like deviate a bit here. While doing agency work, there was this one project where a company bought the license for Stratego, the board game, and they wanted to bring it to iPad in the US, and they reached out to us to design the game UI, which was a really fun project because I had like finally got to design this Blizzard style UI. It was really fun. But there was this one guy on the project who was a freelance PM, and he approached us and he said, like, guys, you're now doing this agency work. Have you ever thought about like building your own product? And we were intrigued because if you're doing agency work, you often only ship V1, and then you're dependent on the client, the budget, whatever business goals are involved, whether you're possibly not get to improve on that product. While if you're in product design, the iteration of the product is the main thing. It's also the best way to like see how good you are. I mean, like building a product from scratch is a really good way to learn. So we were intrigued. We ended up doing a bit of a startup adventure with that same guy. We raised some money, built a product which was called Bundle, which was back before Apple and Google were big in that space, was a way to bundle photos together with family and friends on iOS and Android. And you could turn those photos into a photo book. That whole adventure from like raising money, failing, ending up selling the company with kind of a soft landing, was quite an adventure. But that actually was the key moment, pivotal moment when we sold that company. Renee and I were like, okay, what do we enjoy the most? And we were like, yeah, designing great products for people. And also we like the idea of shipping. And that's actually when we already knew Dennis and our other partner, Leslie. So we reached out like, let's just join forces and create this product team. And that's actually the segue to get to what Cash Fast is right now. Is like create this. If we are with the 5 of us, 3 engineers, 2 designers, we can build anything. And the first idea was to put us like to work as a team for clients. Let's say a client needs a product built from 0 to 1 from scratch. They would hire our entire team, which was kind of hard to do. Clients were more looking for like need help with engineering or help with design. So we ended up a bit like separated, but I'll leave that for later in the call. But I think like that adventure, that learning curve, doing the whole startup thing actually ended up being a big like starter for what Cash Fast is right now. And Cash Fast is the 5 of us. There's no staff.
Yeah. So you started out being this more kind of like traditional agency, it sounds like, where like clients come in with a project, you work on it, then you like say goodbye. And then you got this opportunity to come in and be a bit more embedded, work on a product and build a product together. And then sounds like that inspired you to like build a product agency essentially, where you're like this product team. And tell us a little bit about how it works. Like, you know, do clients come in and you're sort of juggling with multiple clients at once, or do you take on one client at a time, or how does that kind of work?
Dennis, you want to take this one? Sure. So how does that work? Well, I guess like how do clients approach us? We've never actually done any marketing kind of stuff or anything like that. What pretty much happens is I would say if you do a good job at a project, people will remember if you first of all, if you do a good job, but also if you're like a good person to work with, if you're a good colleague or a good friend or whatever, they tend to get back to you like once a project has been completed. So I would guess like most of these the clients that approach us are through either our own personal, that we've already worked with them, or word of mouth that other people worked with us.
Right.
And yeah, that's pretty much like, I would say, like the bigger way that people people approach us. Yeah.
How do you get to that point though? Like thinking about someone who is starting, they don't have this reputation, or they don't have like these existing clients. Yeah.
I wanted to jump in and
go for it.
Definitely. I think like, I see Dennis, to the point that Dennis just mentioned my age, repeated my age in the chat. To that point, I think it's very important to understand, if you're young, that this is where you are now in life. And if all goes well, there's this entire career ahead of you. And all the effort that you put into that career compounds over time. All the relationships you build, all the experience you get designing, all the projects that you do and people find out about, all of that compounds. So it just didn't it didn't happen overnight. And I see a lot of people these days, they want to start at the end of their career. That's really hard to do. We had to move from I mean, like building websites for small businesses around the corner, and then like we put our best foot forward and made the best out of it, and really worried about the details and getting our best work out there. And you never know who's watching. There's this fog of war. You never know who's looking at your work. Maybe somebody internally in a company right now is sharing your Dribble profile. You just never know. So you just have to keep on doing what you're doing from client to client. And I think one really big lesson that Dennis touched upon is don't be a dick, because it's really important. If you're a nice person to work with and you're trustworthy, we can still call people that we've worked with 10 years ago and they answer the phone and they want to help us out. And that's what I mean with compounds. Your career compounds, your relationship compounds, and that's how you end up like working with these great companies. But you have to like put your work out there, be approachable. And then there's this one side thing, and that is that I think like Dennis and I owe a lot of our careers to Twitter, literally.
Do you want to share more about that? Like what influence has Twitter had?
I mean, Twitter is a great way as a designer to learn about new things that are happening, whether it's like design trends or just like learn about product design in general, design, follow people who are smarter than you, more experienced than you, see what they talk about, join conversations, but also building relationships. We literally ended up freelancing for Uber, which was a very unique situation because Uber would never hire freelance designers, because the design manager in the Netherlands saw my work for Amsterdam Airport and he reached out via Twitter. So literally, like, we owe so much to Twitter, being there, building that community.
Yeah.
And I want to add to that between me and Peter is definitely the more social media active one. And we kind of have this dynamic that pretty much everywhere that he goes, that he has that, like he said, like the fog of war, you never know who's watching. And then somebody's watching Peter's Dribble, Peter Twitter comments, and they approach Peter, and Peter then says, yes, I'll come work at Uber. And then 3 months later, it's I don't have to, like, I can just come up, hey, I'm Dennis, I work with Peter, can I please work here? And then, yeah, sure, we know Peter, he's a good dude, come on board. And but it does demonstrate the difference between being actually social, like being active on social media, that it actually does help a lot. With and we are now at that point that, well, just when people approach Peter, then Peter says, well, I have someone that is like pretty similar to who I am, but funnier, and then he's just like, he just pushes it up my side.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, you've both worked for Uber at different times, like you kind of hand it off to each other, which is really cool.
We
And
had
yeah,
some overlap though. We
yeah,
have
that's
a
true.
good
A little
overlap.
bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit.
But I think
Um,
an important, before we
Go ahead.
move to the next subject, I think an important thing is like you can be the best designer in the world, but it's no use if nobody knows you're there. Nobody knows you
Right.
exist.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of
You
like,
have to put your work out there.
I totally agree with that. Tell us a little bit about like, why did you come together to create, you know, this agency versus just freelancing individually? Like what are the benefits there of like, you know, coming together and forming this team?
Yeah, so I think one of the key things is to work together with other people, like to be a team, to have like companionship, to talk about things, to do stuff together. I think if you're freelancing solo, especially if you're doing the model where you're basically a design agency by yourself, it can be quite lonesome sometimes. Like you are the person doing the admin and the person doing the client acquisition and the person doing the design
Doing
work.
it all.
Yeah. And another thing that made us decide to do it like this is we had some bigger goals than just doing design work for clients. And when I describe, why is Dan so blurred now? If I describe Cash Fast, I always describe it as three pillars. There's like Cash Fast, the design product agency that helps clients build products. Then there's Cash Fast, where we ourselves build products that we put out in the world. And then there's this thing on the background where we use the money that we earn, we reinvest it in different things. So either we reinvest it in building our own products, but we also invested in real estate, for example. So the same partners with who we work as a design agency, we also partner up and to buy or invest real estate here in the Netherlands. So, and we also invest in startups occasionally. So we are, the big idea of CashFest is not to scale in staff, but to scale in either software projects that we own ourselves and build ourselves, or basically be this investment company in the background.
Yeah, so you're doing more than just taking on client work and working on client projects. You're also building your own products on the side and investing in whether it's real estate or other startups. How did you get to that point? Like, how did you get from like, let's be a traditional agency, take on client work, to then like, let's build our own things and invest in other things? What was that journey like?
Yeah, that's actually a good question, because the thing, and this is a bit of a personal opinion, but the thing I see with agencies is that they're on this one direction track. It's like, if you're an agency, you get clients, you get, at some point you get bigger clients, you need more staff to facilitate for those bigger clients, then you need even more bigger clients to pay for the staff, and like that's an endless treadmill.
Right.
Like the agency needs to grow.
Yeah, and we have, when I was before I joined CashFest, because CashFest like already existed in the form of, you had Peter and you have Renee. Me and Wesley, we had a company called Studio Gewoon. But prior for us joining Peter and Renee, you had loads of smaller agencies that we witnessed like the growth of them, and they were, I'm not gonna call them by name,
Sure.
but they were actually very, like, I really looked up to those companies. They did amazing jobs. Their portfolios always looked amazing.
Yeah.
But I think all of them that I looked up to back then, they all fell into this trap where they had to take on bigger projects, so they had to get more staff, and then they had to get more bigger projects to facilitate that. But at some point, their agency wasn't hot anymore, and the project didn't come. The project didn't came their way anymore, and then they couldn't afford any of the. Well, they couldn't afford being this big of an agency, and then they had to quit. And we've always said that that is not the route that we would end up on. Like we always said, we are going to be a 5-man band. and that it would take someone special if there would be a sixth person, but we would always go with the five that we'd have. And yeah.
And I think like in the Netherlands, at least, you saw a lot of consolidation where all these smaller companies, design agencies, were being bought, and now
Right.
only the big companies survive because they have enough like resources to play this game. And we just posed the question to ourselves, like, how can we scale, and not be like, can we scale in, I mean, like, I don't want to say money, but maybe that is the
Financially,
thing, but
yeah.
financially, yeah, how can we scale financially instead of like becoming this big agency? And for me, at least, and I want to like mention this Sandwich Video. I don't know
I've
if
heard
people
of
know
them.
about that company,
Yes.
but you've definitely seen a video from them.
Yes.
Like if you're on the internet, you've seen a video from them. Those guys were actually pioneering this, where if a company wouldn't have enough money, like Airbnb back in the day, they would say like, okay, pay us 50K and the rest we take in equity. That was
Right, I
pretty
remember
good move.
this.
And they did it a lot for a lot of companies. So Sandwich Video is basically an investment vehicle company, but you think of them as a video production company. So we definitely took
Yeah.
a page from their playbook.
Interesting. Yeah, I was gonna ask a question around like how do you decide what to charge clients? And it sounds like there might be inspiration here from Sandwich Video where they took like equity or stock essentially as part of their compensation. Is that something that you also do, or what? Like, how does that work when working with clients?
Well, we did have the opportunity to do so. I think in some occasions we I'm not sure if we actually have done so.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. But it was always sort of like the plan, or that we would try and do that. But that actually never came to be. I'm not sure why. I would guess we worked at Schiphol pretty early in the Cashfresh era, right? When we started Cashfresh.
Amsterdam Airport for people.
Amsterdam Airport, sorry, yeah. And well, Schiphol for Amsterdam Airport is obviously not going to give us some equity, so I guess that that adventure ended there pretty quickly. But from Schiphol, we went to Uber, and Uber does do equity for their actual employees, but freelancing, and yeah, they don't give equity to freelancers.
Yeah.
But I think like you mean maybe on hourly rates as well, Femke?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too, is
Yeah.
like, because I know a lot of freelancers struggle with how to charge. Like, do I charge an hourly rate? If so, how do I figure out what that is? Do I charge a day rate for a whole project? What's kind of your philosophy?
There's so many options.
Yeah, but we do actually. There is a strategy. If you ask them a certain amount, they say no. Well, high. But if they say yes directly or like immediately, then you know that you're too low. So I guess by trying a couple of times, you know where the sweet spot is. Because if they say yes too soon, then you're obviously pricing yourself too low. Yeah, and if they
but are we talking about like project-based pricing, where you just like
how do what do you do?
Exactly.
Do you do project-based?
No, but like for us, I mean, maybe we need to go back one step, and because there are different ways of how to perceive freelancing. Let's say the default idea around freelancing is you're this one-person agency. You have multiple clients that you juggle at once, which can be really stressful. We're doing it a bit differently here in Europe, or at least like some countries in Europe. Here is actually a thing as a freelancer, you can be embedded with a company or a team for a longer period. Let's say 6 months, you're working together with a design team. And that comes from a history where, in the Netherlands at least, companies aren't really giving away equity. That's the thing that's more that like in Silicon Valley is very standard, right?
Right.
So in the Netherlands, if you want to earn some more than just like a regular salary, you also often become a freelancer, so you can charge higher rates. Also because there is no equity. So for us, a lot of the times, like if we take Uber for an example, we were working on an hourly rate. and not on a project-based rate or not on a day rate. So literally we got paid by the hour.
And is that usually how you charge for each client, or does it kind of depend on the client and what's required?
It depends on the project, because like last year I also did a project where we just agreed on a weekly rate. So I think it's very important to be flexible. I think if you're selling design as a service, you can also figure out like what works best for you and the client. It's a conversation. As long as the client needs the design work and you can offer that design work, and depends where you are in the world, what your level of experience. At some point in your career, you just really feel more comfortable dropping high numbers than at the start of your career. That's just life.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned a little bit about how like sometimes you take on these projects and they're like 6 months, you're kind of like actually embedded at their company, like in their team, right? It's not like you're sort of the separated like client freelancer. How does that work in regards to like, you know, you do the work, you bill the client, that money comes into the agency. How do you then sort of distribute the funds amongst yourselves? Like, how do you decide what gets saved and like reinvested in other projects versus you obviously have to pay yourself somehow at some point? So yeah, do you like, what's your philosophy there, I guess, as a team for how that works?
Want to answer this one, Dennis?
No, go ahead. I'm thinking about it myself. How we ever decided.
No, I
that.
think it just like we bill from one company. It's all added to one file, and we have among each other we have we agreed on a base salary,
right?
And so everybody gets paid on a monthly basis, but everything that's left after we've paid for a year all these salaries, that money is left, and we can do with that money what we want. We can either invest it somewhere in a startup, in real estate, or something else. We can invest it in ourselves, paying for new ventures that we want to explore ourselves, right? But that's basically how we do. Like we're financially tied together, I would say, as a company, and we distribute the funds like that. It's the base salary, and the rest we just like we discuss as a group what do we want to do for next year, and then we deploy the funds.
And what's like, can you share what a current project is that you're working on or that you're sort of reinvesting the money back into? What do you have going on?
Like one of our projects that we're now doing is Pennywise, which is a product that helps people invest in index funds, and it teaches them why investing, especially at a young age, is important, and helps them grow from a novice to an experienced investor by using the app. Which is really close to what we care about as well. If you listen to our story, you can definitely hear a thread in the background, like how to build wealth over time. So that Pennywise, basically our story that we want to share with a lot of other people, we're turning that into an app. It's not open or published yet or released yet, but these are like efforts that we do as a team. Where we invest our time and money into new projects.
How do you find time for that, or balance like project client work versus your own kind of projects that you want to self-invest in?
I think like the Pennywise kind of was we didn't have to think about that for longer than for a couple of minutes when I think it's Peter. When I started investing in ETFs. Like 5, 6, 7 years ago. I'm not sure anymore. I'm getting old. But the one who showed it to me was Peter, because Peter had done all the groundwork. He was really excited about it. He read some books, the Boglehead's philosophy book, and he explained to me how everything works, like from an overall level of well, first of all, what is investing? What are ETFs? Where can I invest? Like the basics. Then he also taught me a lot about what to invest in, which ETF specifically. And well, I started doing it. I'm still doing it. And then he showed it to some other people as well. And then he quickly realized that that story was actually something that we could turn into a product real soon. But because we already had seen the benefits of actually doing it and how much work there was actually going into him learning it, but me doing it as well, like putting in the actual orders on the platform that we were using at that time. So like it made a lot of sense to do so. So he told us that he thought that was a great idea, and there was nobody within the group that doubted the idea or him being the guy that had to make it. So we already knew beforehand, like when we started Cashfresh, we already said we're going to do client work, but we're also going to do our own products, like doing our own projects, building our own products. So the philosophy, we already had that in place. We already knew that we, at one point, we're gonna build our own product. And we already had a strategy, which was, well, we have 5 guys working for an hourly rate. We have a profit by the end of the year. We know how much that will be approximately. Let's have some 1 or 2 people work on a product every day for a year long, and we know how much that will cost us.
In opportunity cost.
In opportunity cost, but also like in salary that we have to actually, that the other 3 people have to make in order to pay the guys working on that product. So I'm not entirely sure what the question was, but the idea, he pitched it to us and we already knew it was a good idea. So how to decide on it? If it's a good idea, you know, I would say.
I think there's a good lesson here of like, you know, to just look around you at the things you're already interested in, or already like, you know, products you're already using, or an area that you all sort of share a collective interest in, and look for opportunity there, because it's the space then that you already have experience in, you're personally invested in it, not necessarily financially, but like, you know, it's a space that you have interest in. And that's often where you can find some really good opportunities.
I totally agree. I really like that movement of the one-person SaaS company, where you just find this really small thing, and you build it. I really love that. And I mean, like in the whole creator economy, all the things that are happening right now, there are so many small and big opportunities to create something.
Totally. Yeah, like Superpair, this platform we're using right now, I think is a good example of that too.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Awesome. What about like freelancing in Europe? You know, like I feel like my time when I lived in Europe, like almost everyone I met was a freelancer. There's just so many freelancers there. It doesn't seem to be as common in like North America, for example. Why do you think that is? What do you think it is about like Europe that sort of creates this more freelance agency culture?
I guess it also ties back to like companies not giving employees equity, right? So so opportunity to earn more is to become a freelancer, whether that's you are this one-man band or one-person studio, or you're working embedded. I think that's actually a big deal of it, but maybe it's also culture, because I don't know how global this audience is, but Northwest Europe is a pretty comfortable place where like you have a lot of social safety and just in general, like people lead comfortable lives. So the risk, between air quotes, to try something for yourself is much lower, because there are a lot of safety nets. Maybe that could be a reason. I don't have any research on that topic, but it's just like thinking about this environment and this culture. Maybe it's also people in the Netherlands tend to be slightly stubborn and want to like be their own boss all the time. Maybe it's that as well. I don't know.
We want to be right all the time.
I have never full-time freelanced. I freelanced a little bit when I was like getting into product design as a way to get some like UX product work experience. I kind of just position myself a little bit as a UX designer, a little bit of fake it till you make it, you know, to get some of that work in and then build up that experience, which was relatively easy to do from Europe, I think, based on like the different support that they have for that.
And I mean, it's a great time to be a designer right now. The demand for designers is so high.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about, I often hear from designers that there's actually like so much competition now when it comes to either applying for a job or freelancing, because there's, you know, a lot more designers. Is that something you've dealt with? Like, have you felt that throughout the last few years that there's like more supply of designers than demand? Is that something that you've had to
The
experience or
other
not
way
really?
around, I would
Yeah,
say.
I was
Okay.
gonna say
Yeah.
like I mean in tech in general, like we've been well we from me from I also have a different company, another company called Into Event. We've been trying to get front like an engineer, like a full stack engineer on board, but there are so many companies searching for or looking for engineers right now, and at Uber, for example, we're looking for a lot of designers. I would say there's a supply shock in that sense. I'm like, yeah, I think it's the other way
Interesting.
around, to be honest.
Yeah, so it's a big opportunity, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And software is
maybe.
eating the world, so like there's always need for either engineers or designers.
Yeah, I know, true. Cool. What about like folks who are, you know, probably in the early stages of their career and maybe are considering getting into freelancing? What advice would you have for them? Any tips you might want to share as someone that's like just getting started in this space?
Yeah, I think one that I mentioned earlier is to like maybe just start small and accept that that's a path, and that's totally fine. You start with helping out local businesses, whether it's with websites or something else, and you just build experience from that. You build out your portfolio and you build out like new relationships. I think that's a great way. I think financially it's important to be responsible with the money that does come in. Like maybe the general rule is to have like a safety net of 3 months of salary. So if there's like a drought where there aren't any new projects, you can still like spend that time promoting yourself or working on your own projects. I think don't underestimate the power of these Dribble meetups or just general design meetups. I think it's a really great way to meet new people, and all these people that you connect with there, they might follow you on Twitter, and they might recommend you for this project that they can't take on. So you build this network, because we used to have that as well, where we were the guys that got the overflow from other agencies.
I
Now
see.
people will reach out to us. Do you know any good designers? And I overflow to other people that we know. So it's really big within your professional network to also build out these relationships, so people think of you when they can't do the project themselves.
Yeah, totally. That network effect is really important and only builds over time and compounds, as you were saying earlier. Dennis, what about you? Any thoughts or advice?
Well, I think the one that I find important, the one that Peter already mentioned, is let yourself like show your work, let yourself be heard. That's something that I regret not doing earlier. Like I'm still not that active on social media. I'm still not that active on Dribble, but every time that I am or that I try to be, you directly get response. Like it's almost frightening sometimes if you show some work on let's say LinkedIn, and if you've done some good work, people will notice. People just show it and let yourself be heard. I think that's
and I think a really one that you don't expect is, and it's very unpopular within all of us in tech, is LinkedIn is crazy powerful. I get more reactions and activity when I post dribble shot to LinkedIn than on Dribble. It's crazy.
That's
and
maybe
my
the
inbox
best
immediately
tip.
full.
That's the best tip. Make a very nice
dribble shot,
art directed dribble shot. Not that, like, if you have to actual work with the client feedback, sure, post that as well. But if you have a slightly more like nice looking one that you say, well, this looks a little bit nicer, and I think this might get some more attention, post that, animate it, and then put it on LinkedIn. And that's like the formula to get a lot of likes on LinkedIn. Dribble not so much. Dribble doesn't care, apparently.
Your clients aren't on Dribble.
The one, exactly. And the funny thing with LinkedIn is it's the one like we all don't use, but the power of LinkedIn is crazy. It's crazy strong.
Yeah. What about, have you ever had a situation where you've had to fire a client or walk away from a project, or do you ever turn projects down, or like has every
Yeah.
project for you been a success story, or has there
No,
been some hard
no.
times along the way?
I think the best stories are are these stories, but those are more like for when we're having a beer. But yes, we fired clients because sometimes you might have to do it for money, and it's not a really fun project. And those come along, that's
Right.
fine. But once you've built up a certain career for yourself, it's totally fine to not take up, to only pick projects that you know that are fun, or that like you can do a really good job on. You're starting to become picky. But it's also okay that if a relationship goes sour, to like end that relationship from your side as well. That is totally okay, because like the energy drain that it requires and that it takes on you is so much higher. There's probably, and I'm like, there's probably with like enough work out there right now, so you don't have to bother with all
Mm.
this negative energy. Like, work with people that you like. There's enough work to go around to do great things with people that are fun to work with.
Yeah, and I think it also helps to have that financial buffer, right? Like you were talking earlier about
Yeah,
making sure you have that sort of 3-month buffer,
yeah. So you can say no.
affordance, yeah, to
Yeah.
say no in those situations. Dennis, did you want to add anything?
No, like in general, I think people should just, when they can, when it's financially feasible, is that you should always try and pursue doing the stuff that you really like doing. It doesn't, if you, don't go after the money. I mean, just do the things that you really like, work on those kinds of projects. And I think the important thing is that you enjoy your work. I mean, you do it most of the day.
Mhm.
So if you ever have the choice to pick like a sucky project for 90 euros an hour or whatever, or you could do one for 70, but you really like it, go for that. You'll get way more energy
Right.
out of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Choose the better
that's
project rather than the better pay, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It will help you on the long run. I mean, getting out of bed and like dreading the fact that you have to work on a shitty project, but you get paid a
Mhm.
lot for. I've done that a couple of times, and you can ask Peter. It doesn't help the vibe that you get, or that
Mhm.
you'll signal out. Yeah,
Yeah. And it's a
Totally.
balance.
yeah, sure,
They cannot
obviously.
all be fun, and they
All
cannot
the
all
time.
be well paid, and or
No,
like, it's a
no,
balance, but it
and
moves
you do.
throughout your career.
Yeah, and you do always have to keep in mind, if you have a family to support, a house to pay, rent or whatever,
Sure.
you have to do that grind. You have to. I mean, you actually have to get paid.
Yeah. Yeah. What about, before we move into Q&A, because I know we have a couple of questions, let's say someone wanted to start freelancing tomorrow. What is the first thing they should do? Like, should they create a website? Should they start reaching out to potential clients? Like, what's kind of the first step you would advise someone to take?
Wow. The first step I would take, I would, all joking aside, I would get a coffee first. Just sit, no, but literally, like, sit down and
Think about it.
think about it for a while.
Yeah.
Um, but call people.
I
Like,
think
if
it's,
there's
yeah, it
one
depends
thing,
really on your locale. Yeah.
well, yeah, but if from our experience, my experience is, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call someone.
Mhm.
Ask them for a referral, ask them if they could get started somewhere. And I see a question about discounts. Yes, it's okay to occasionally give a discount, especially when you're just trying to make it. If the work is more important than the pay, you can give a
Right.
discount and get started. And but just ask. Like, go on Twitter. You don't already have to have a big following, but post it on LinkedIn. Call people.
Yeah.
Call your local website builder company in the
Yeah.
neighborhood. They might already have work for you that they can't do
That they can't
themselves.
take on.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
call.
Yeah.
And I
That's
think
the
in
thing.
general, just like all the sorry, I got distracted by that question.
That's actually
Is
a
the
good
portfolio
question.
just a test? Yeah, is the portfolio? Yeah, you need at least a couple of pieces of work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just to give you some insight on that, like whenever I get an email from somebody who wants to apply for an internship at our company or just a job at our company, we don't have any vacancy, but people do send an open vacancy, right? I always check students' their portfolio. If it only shows schoolwork, like that doesn't interest me. I want to see like work that was actually in the real world, whether it's for your local coffee shop, the grocery store, I don't care. Like I want to see that you've worked for an actual company and built something that's actually in the world. I think like a couple of pieces of those in your portfolio. And if you don't have those yet, maybe just create a couple of like mock-ups. I remember a couple of guys a couple of years ago who created some like alternatives like for Uber or other companies, and they draw a lot of attention. At least it shows your design skills, even if you haven't had a real project yet. So set that up and then like reach out to people, and don't be afraid to tell people that you are a designer. All of us suffer from imposter syndrome. It will never go away. Spoiler.
Yeah, he's 36, so he knows.
Yeah. So don't be afraid to tell other people that you are a designer.
Yeah, Dennis, did you want to add on?
Yes, about the portfolio piece. If there's like one thing that you could, if you want to start tomorrow, and the first thing you want to do after you had that coffee that I recommend you to do is that the portfolio piece. I agree with Peter. If you're gonna send out stuff, that you're already at the point that you want to send out stuff, try and have a portfolio ready. But the thing with portfolio is, at least I try to, especially when I was younger and I was just starting out, everything had to look perfect. So I can't count the amount of portfolio websites that I built for myself or designed for myself, and wasn't able to build, and eventually never launched,
never shipped,
like never shipping. That I've spent hours designing stuff that I've never shipped, portfolio pieces, or even fake mock-ups that I thought I was going to design the new Nike app back when Nike apps were still cool in design, that I never shipped. So yes to portfolios. If you have a portfolio, like send it over. But if you want to get started and you already have some work, call people, like reach out to people.
So it sounds like
portfolio.
Yes. I feel like at the beginning of every year, I'm like, okay, I'm going to redesign my portfolio, and then I just never do.
No.
So it sounds like having some sort of website or like online presence is good. Having a few projects in there that are, either real world or like self-initiated projects, whether they're concepts or mocks, is good to have just to show that initiative and experience. Awesome. Okay, let's.
Sorry, just
Go
really
ahead.
quick. I know I've mentioned Dribbble before, but I still, in my professional career, use Dribbble as my portfolio. I don't have a portfolio website. It's just I tell clients, check out my
Go to your
Dribbble.
Yeah.
We haven't updated our Cashfest website in ages. Was that a secret? No.
Don't tell folks.
Yeah. Having, as long as you have some web presence, doesn't matter where it is or how old the work is.
If you do decide to go for a portfolio, like Peter said, use Dribbble. Because the interface of Dribbble already looks really smooth, and having a place on there to show some of the work that you've done. Awesome, do that. But don't build your own website. Don't go onto those let's build our websites together.com. It will take you because I have literally have stories about people around me, not even specifically in the design world, that say, well, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to start with building a website, and then 2 years later they still don't have a website, or they were on the verge of launching and they never launched. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be in a portfolio format website per se. Get the coffee, call people, then do the Dribbble account. So that's 3 steps. We're getting on
3 steps. Okay, everyone knows what they have to do. Great. Okay, let's get to some of these questions. So a question from Devram is, can you show us something you really enjoyed making or designing? Maybe you can just speak to a project that you're really proud of, or something that you had a lot of fun working on.
I think do the Corona melder and start from the beginning, Dennis.
Go for it.
All one, and then
no, there's not enough time. Do Corona.
Do Corona. All right. So Peter, fill in the blanks, please, because I don't remember the entire story. But Corona just hit the world, and the government, the Dutch government, they solicited some sort of like a project where they said we're going to build an app, and we're gonna do a sort of I think it was a hackathon kind of thing where they had like 7 companies that could pitch their ideas and actually like hack their idea into an actual product, or at least a prototype of the product within 2 days. And I remember being in the playground with my daughter and getting a text message from somebody that says, well, Dennis, Peter, and I think there's like Naman and other people, great people in that chat. And he said, I think we can do a better job. Let's just make a mock-up. So I think it was Sunday or something, Peter and me, we directly sat behind our computers. Like I was at my home, he was at his own home, obviously, and we just designed some stuff, and then we showed it. I think we just showed it on LinkedIn. We showed it on Twitter. I think that got the ball running. It helped us a lot that the actual products that were being built or designed from that hackathon were really bad. I'm just gonna be honest, they were really bad. So they sort of like threw all those concepts out of the window, and then they said, well, we're gonna like design, or we're just gonna build a team that like of people that we think can actually build a good product. And we're just gonna like create this team. And then at a certain point, there's the government just called us up, me and Peter, do you want to join the team? And that was actually quite an exciting project to start working on.
But if I zoom out a bit, you can see like this trend what we talked about earlier is that we basically got that project we saw an opportunity, we saw this problem in the world where contact tracing apps needed to be built as a possible solution to help fight the pandemic. We started exploring concepts. We shared those concepts openly on Twitter and invited everybody to give feedback and to join. We even wrote documentation how we felt like contact tracing apps should work globally, and we just put that all out on the internet. And then the government literally saw our efforts and called us like, hey guys, it sounds like you know what you're doing. Can you come help us out on this project? Like we literally did that ourselves by putting it out into the world. And I think that is a great lesson by itself.
Yeah, I remember, I think there's a Medium article about it somewhere, right? That Yella maybe wrote. I'm trying to find it. I can't find it right now, but I remember you put that out. And I think that you even had like a Figma file that was like open source, basically, right? Yeah, I remember being in there.
Figma file, like we invited all the designers in the Netherlands and even in the world, because it was really inspiring, because like I think the contact tracing app in South Africa and in another country in Asia is actually inspired on our work, because like they literally joined our Figma and used it to build out it. Even the one in Canada, I remember.
Yeah,
that was we got some good exposure from that as well, and it was really cool to do all together and meet new people.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, what an amazing project, and like an amazing opportunity to work with the government and like help fight the pandemic. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, right? It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, timing was great.
Yeah, I know we're running really close on time. I will bring up one more question. There's this one from Madison around sort of what are your thoughts on faking it until you make it? In regards to taking on new projects, maybe you don't have a lot of experience, but you're really passionate about it. How much should you fake it to like sort of get those experiences to help up level?
I'm not sure how Peter will react to this, but I would just say, go ahead, do it. Just fake it until you make it. I mean, there are obviously consequences to it if you fail afterwards. If you made it and then you do a bad job, there will be consequences to it. But at the same time, if you don't do it, you might regret it later, and you might have just pulled it off. And I'm Peter. It might be a little bit different in this regard, but I think I faked it a lot when I was just starting on. The first website that I sold to someone, one of the questions was, have you made websites earlier? Sure, I've done like a ton of portfolio websites.
Got my own website.
Yeah, got my own website.
Redesign my portfolio 12 times.
Yeah. If somebody asks you to build a website and you're going to say, well, yeah, sure, I want to, but I never made one, then you're on the losing side. So
right.
yeah, but just realize that there are consequences to those actions if you fail to do so. But in general, I mean, if you want to get started, you have to start somewhere, and somebody has to give you that opportunity. And sure, a little white lie to get you up and running there, just go right ahead. But just keep in mind that it can backfire. But then just don't talk to that person anymore, and you'll be fine. Just do the next one and see how that works out. Learn from your mistakes.
What do you think, Peter?
I think it's a fine balance between self-confidence and like faking until you make it. I mean, if you're confident that you can deliver on the job, you should definitely be confident out there and present yourself that way. Like, sure, I can make websites, sure, I can design great work. You should be confident. But to Dennis's point, just be careful that if you take on work that you can't deliver on. Let's say if it's, I don't know, think of an example, but like, yeah, be mindful of that you don't fall in that trap, because you don't want to get a bad name.
I actually have an anecdote on that. I was once, when I was just starting out, I was asked to build some sort of a digital experience, like a digital shopping experience for companies, for a company in the regards of like a Ethos or a Kruidvat. I'm not sure, is that a drugstore? Yeah, like a drugstore.
Yeah,
and
like a pharmacy.
Like a pharmacy kind of thing, yeah. And their idea around this digital experience was that a user could like scroll through the product offerings, like as you would see, like actual on the shelf, like you would see on the store.
Okay.
And I said, sure, we can try and do that. And I've spent months trying to design it, like not even trying to build it, but trying to design something that would work, which I had no experience in doing so. And I failed really hard on that. It actually cost me some physical problems because of the stress around that project, because I got asked to sign a contract which says if there would stuff would go wrong, I would have like a tremendous fine on my hands. And between that and failing, that was one of the lessons that and like, were there any mistakes when first starting your freelance agency? Not specifically agency, but taking on too much hay when I was just starting out. I failed there miserably, and I was in a bad shape because of that. So if you do decide to fake it till you make it, do it with a logo design or a small website, but don't go try and build digital.
Not like a national pharmacy company.
No, just don't do that. I mean, that was a good lesson.
Awesome. Great. Well, I know we're a little bit over time. Thanks, folks, for staying on. This was so much fun. Thank you so much to both Dennis and Peter.
Thanks for having us. I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite much.
It was fun.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing all of your learnings and experience about freelancing and sort of this agency. Was really, really great. Folks, you can find Dennis and Peter on Twitter and Dribbble. I just posted their links in the chat. I think we'll wrap it up here. Thanks so much for coming and joining the stream. I hope everybody enjoys their weekend, and we'll see you in a future stream. All right. Thank you.
Happy Friday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.